Good night. This man is Frederick Winslow Taylor. He changing factories. He measured every time. He wanted the one best way out to work. He helped start the second industrial revolution. Taylor was born rich. I went to Harvard, but they left Harvard. Is working in a factory as a boy. His main segured his steps. He wanted to work to be to he was always training to find the perfect way. Taylor worked in a factory. Workers were out slowly. They were afraid of low pay. Taylor used a stopwatch. He measured time for each task. He said work is a science. Taylor improved industry. He studied at night. He became an engineer. He made work faster. He wrote a famous book. He changed how people work.
Taylor replaced the old rule of thumbs or improvisations use scientific management. Under this new system and centralized planning department dictates the exact tool, motions, and time for every task. His central premise was radical brain work must be removed from the shop floor because, according to him, the science of work in the complex for the average labor to understand. His most famous experiment and Bethlehem still in 1898 illustrates after studying 500 men, he discovered that a lot of exactly 21.5 lbs was the optimal formula for machines' daily tonnage. His design specials shows based on the material coal or iron ore. The results when storing the workforce or reduced from 500 to 140 men. Costs were slashed by 50% and wages for the remain worked increased by 60%. Taylor also focused on matching speed. He conducted 50,000 experiments, reducing 800,000 pounds of steel to chips to find the perfect tool. He invented Taylor white high speed steel, while carbon steel filed at 90 rpm. His inventions allowed machines to work at reduced temperatures and to 40 rpm, effectively doubling the manufacturing capacity of the entire planet. His obsession transcended the factory. He invented a revolutionary power hammer in 1888 and three transplant machines for his state, and even a Y-shaped golf pattern that was so effective that the golf associations had to outlaw it. For Taylor, there was no human activity, labor, or recreations that could not be optimized through data analysis.
This infographic illustrates the shift from traditional craft management to scientific management tailoring. You plunge the world in the 19th century, the crash fan planet is based on tradition. Under Taylor's and centralized planning department use data to design the work. How are tools selected? Craftsmen brought their own, often and standardized tools. Tailorings introduced mathematically optimized identical tools provided by management. How is space determined? Wheel culture allowed a comfortable speed, often slowed by soldiering. Tailorings impose the spoke watch, pushing our cares to the biological maximum. How is space calculate? Carsmen revise flat daily race or arbitrary piece rates often set head to Santa Catch. Tailoring sit scientific based race you we their 260% bonuses for meeting is set standard. In essence, the chart shows how management evolved from tradition and autonomy to a system of strict measurement, control, and incentives. This infographic shows the tools that symbolize control and precision in the era of scientific management. Exhibit 1, the stopwatch. It was considered the ultimate arbiter of truth. Managers is used to hush down to the military detect wasted mouse hounds and set street output standards. Exhibit to the childless rule created by mathematician Har Jivar. This customized slide rules instantly calculated the exact fit, speed, and tool requirements for complex machining ties. HB3, the Eastern sheet. It was the workers' daily blueprint. It detailed the exact schedules of operations, tools, and timing allowed down to the second. Taylor insisted men must do good. They are told promptly and become one of the train or gear use. In essence, These tools illustrate how efficiency was enforced through strict measurement, calculation, and control, turning our tools into parts of a larger machine. This infographic contrasts two perspectives on industrial efficiency, man-shaming versus workers. The view from the boardroom, productivity double or triple, costs for materials and overjet plummeted. Standardized training replaces skiing, carving, or cheaper interchange child labor. The view from the shop floor. Upside wages rose by 30 to 60% for those meeting new standards. Coach Oakers is spreading civil the escalating lots of autonomy and discount from the relentless pace. Verdict many felt they were being strict or they inhumanity. In essence, this infographic shows how efficiency brought economic gains for companies but also created the soul's hand and human cost for workers.
The innovators didn't stop. Our experiment shows that for their own best interests, it is not good for most men to get rich too fast. Many of the will works irregularly and tend to become more or less shiftless, extravagant, and dissipated. Frederick Wilson Taylor. The paradox. Taylor did that in 1915, feeling completely misunderstood. He genuinely believed he has dedicated his life and his fortune to increasing workers, with and creating harmony. The fatal flaw. Taylor viewed labor entirely from the employer perspective with deep class condensation. He failed to understand that pride in craftsmanship and the basic human need for autonomy could not be replaced by an 60 bonus for an instruction sheet. The slide shows the conflict between workers and the chains in the early 20th century. In 1911, as the Watertown Arsenal, workers walked off the jobs, rejecting the use of the stopwatch, which they saw as humiliating. This led to investigation in 1912 into scientific management. Figures like Samuel Gomper's warnings to workers would be treated like machines, pushed to their limits. A.G. Portenar described the system as human, and Upton Sinclair exposed the exploitation more work for light extra pay. In short, industrial efficiency clash with human dignity. The permanent blueprint, the legacy. Taylor's ideas survived Union backlash. French Prime Minister Clemenceau mandated tailoring in war factories, and Lenin demanded that Russia adapt it to Soviet ends. He laid the conceptual foundation for force assembly line and today algorithmic optimization in the knowledge economy. Final thought. Manager scholar P.T. Drucker noted that scientific management may well be the most powerful and most lasting contribution an United States has made to Western thought since the Federalist Papers.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're digging into the story of a man who literally timed the world. His obsession with efficiency basically created the modern workplace, and yeah, it generated incredible wealth, but it also came at a pretty profound human cost. So let's start with this question, because it really gets to the heart of what it feels like to work today. If you've ever had a job where every single second was measured, every task was totally standardized, and you felt, completely interchangeable, well, you've met the ghost of Frederick Winslow Taylor. We're talking about this guy, Frederick Winslow Taylor. He was this brash, kind of eccentric engineer back in the late 19th century, and he was absolutely convinced that work could be a science. He believed that for any job there was one, and only one, perfect way to get it done. So his whole goal was to find what he called the one best way to do any task imaginable. And this one idea, it would completely revolutionize industry. It created a system he called scientific management. And it was a system designed to make the worker serve the process, not the other way around, all in the name of maximum efficiency. This whole mission, it didn't even start in a factory. It really began with his own personal obsession to optimize absolutely everything around him. He just could not stand to see wasted effort, in any form. And this guy's passion for improvement was something else. It applied to everything. His friend said that on hikes, he was constantly experimenting with his legs just to find the most efficient stride. And in sports, oh yeah, he invented a totally wild spoon-shaped tennis racket, and even a two-handled putter that he swung between his legs like a croquet mallet, at least until it got banned. Okay, so this private obsession, it eventually spilled over into his professional life. When he became a foreman at the Midvale Steel Company, he looked around and diagnosed what he saw as the single biggest problem in industry. And it wasn't the machines, it was the men running them. He even gave it a name, soldiering. And let me tell you, he declared an all-out war on it. His weapon of choice was simple, but it was incredibly powerful, the stopwatch. He was convinced that by timing workers, he could scientifically figure out what a fair day's work was and just get rid of soldiering for good. All right, to really see how this all comes together into a full-blown system, we have to look at his most famous experiment, which took place at Bethlehem Steel. This wasn't just about trying to make people work faster. This was about completely re-engineering the work itself. So what did he do? Well, he basically turned the simple act of shoveling into a massive science experiment. He and his team watched hundreds of guys, timing every single bend, every lift, every throw. They tried out different shovels for different materials, one for heavy iron ore, another for light rice coal, the whole shebang. And after all that work, all that timing and measuring, he lands on this magic number, 21.5 pounds. Exactly. That, he said, was the optimal weight for a single shovel load. Any more, and the worker would get tired out too fast. Any less, and he just wasn't being efficient enough. He had found the one best way to shovel. And the results? Just look at this. They were absolutely staggering. With these new scientifically designed shovels and methods, a crew of just 140 men could now do the work that used to take 500. For Bethlehem Steel, their handling costs were cut right in half. To the managers, this was it. This was definitive proof that Taylor's system worked. Okay, so this was a huge success, but it was really just the beginning. Taylor's ideas were about to go global. He wasn't just some consultant anymore. He was basically the prophet of a new industrial religion. His 1911 book, The Principles of Scientific Management, it just exploded. It became this massive sensation, and it was even voted the most influential management book of the entire 20th century. And get this, his ideas were adopted by everyone from capitalists like Louis Brandeis to communists like Vladimir Lenin. Yeah, Lenin saw Taylorism as a key tool to build the Soviet state, even while calling it a system of refined brutality. So on one hand, you've got profits and productivity just skyrocketing. But on the other hand, a serious backlash was starting to brew. The very people who were being timed with stopwatches and handed instruction cards, they started to push back hard. They were feeling the system's sharpest edges. You had union leaders like Samuel Gompers from the American Federation of Labor, and he did not mince words. He saw Taylorism as this deeply dehumanizing scheme, basically designed to squeeze every last drop of effort out of a worker before tossing them aside like a worn-out part. And then you had writers like Upton Sinclair, who took a hard look at Taylor's own data from another experiment with pig iron handlers. And what he found was pretty revealing. He pointed out that workers were pushed to produce 276% more, but their pay only went up by 61%. The vast majority of those efficiency gains, they went straight into the company's pocket. So how did Taylor defend this? Well, his response tells you pretty much everything you need to know about how he saw the average worker. He actually argued that if workers of that caliber were paid too much more, they'd just become shiftless, extravagant, and dissipated. He truly seemed to believe he was protecting them from themselves. So where does that leave us? How are we supposed to think about this guy, the man whose gravestone literally reads Father of Scientific Management? Was he a visionary who created this new age of abundance, or was he a tyrant who put humanity in a cage? Well, if you ask someone like the legendary management guru Peter Drucker, there's no question. He saw Taylor as an absolute giant. He said Taylor's work was a monumental achievement, right up there with America's founding documents, because it was the very first time anyone had actually studied work itself. And that, right there, is the heart of his complicated legacy. There's no doubt we live in a world with incredible efficiency and wealth, a world Taylor absolutely helped build. But it was built on a foundation that very often treated human beings like just another component in the machine, stripping away skill, autonomy, and just the basic pride of doing a job well. Which brings this whole thing, this century-old debate, right back to us today. When you think about it, from the Amazon warehouse to the gig economy, this tension between maximizing efficiency and preserving human dignity, it's still the central drama of the modern workplace. It seems the ghost of Frederick Taylor is still timing us all these years later.